And so what I have to discuss today is the top 10 tips for being a best-selling author. Now, this list was created by Sophie Kinsella, who is the author of the Shopaholic series.
Oh,
So,
love her.
yeah, she's a wonderful writer. She has a huge following. She has had several international best-selling books. So she does know what she's talking about. I also know that you, from your publishing experience, and you have several publications. I have compiled several books, and I've been a co-author in several. So you and I come from a little bit of a different perspective because we're not at the same level as Sophie. So as we talk about her top 10 tips, I thought we would also give our perspective.
Oh, that would be great.
Right, because then people know this is what someone says who has actually climbed and gotten to the top of the ladder. And then the perspective that you and I have from each rung, one at a time, that we're climbing to the top.
Yeah.
And so people have different perspectives.
Absolutely.
So here are the top 10 tips, and here's number 1. Always carry a notebook.
Oh, I do. Well, here's my thing. I carry a sketch pad. All right. So it is like a book. Okay. So it's like I have a journal. But if I don't have that, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm the first one to write on a receipt, a napkin, a paper plate. And believe me, if you guys seen one of my walls, there's a lot of messages on paper plates. Okay. And if something comes to you and you don't have that, even the back of a check. Okay. And I know a lot of people don't carry checkbooks anymore, but even the back of a check, I write something. So, yes, I would say carry something, but if you don't, even sticky notes.
Right. Well, and one of the things in today's world, people have their phone, people have their tablets, people are carrying their computers around. So one of the things is, and you corroborated with what Sophie had said for her number 1 tip, the point is we have ideas. We see things going on in the world around us, and it sparks an idea, or it catches our interest, or it's like, oh, that resonated with me. There's a message in that. So when we write it down, we have it for future reference, because we don't know what the inspiration is going to be for us to start writing.
Yeah. It could be, so many times, because I'm on the road quite a lot. Not like I used to be, but when I was on the road quite a lot, even before I was going to interview somebody, and sitting in traffic, that was like, oh, wow, just something occurred to me. Well, no one's ever asked this question. Let me ask this question. And, just even in the middle of the night, I'll wake up and it's like, oh, you know what? Maybe we should do a story on this, or an idea for a cover, or a cover feature, or a layout, or a spread, or, this might be good for a next show, and then, I'll call you up or I'll, message you, what do you think of this? And vice versa. So for me, they do pop up. I know some people lately, of late, especially with their handheld device, find their ideas on the loo. That's the only way I can say it. They're on the loo and they find their ideas, and it's like, what do you mean by that? But yeah, even going shopping, it's like colors, oh my God, those colors look great together. I would have never even thought with a color wheel.
Right. And taking a photo of it.
Yes.
When we take a photo and we post it to ourselves, we text it or private message, you can put a caption.
Yeah.
So what was, when you talk about colors, then what caught your eye Why did it catch your eye, and why were you drawn to those colors?
Well, it's like the colors you're wearing today, okay? And I'll be honest with you. It's like that's why I do call you Joy, because Joy's always in these beautiful colors, and and she loves color, and I'm gonna tell you I do too. But my favorite colors are earth tones a little bit, um, and she's in this beautiful blue jacket with this yellow top, and it's like, oh my God, and I'm not going to say she looks like she's ready for Easter, but it's like, okay, she's ready for Easter. She wants spring here. She wants summer because summer is her colors. She loves all those beautiful turquoise and golden sunsets. And, those are Denise's colors. So, it's like, oh my God, I love that color combination. And let's put it into a design now, and let's add some color to the magazine. So for me, it's like, yes, I will take a snippet of your colors today.
And that is a great example of why and now we have this on audio, right? Your words describing what you're seeing. And that's why we want to have a notebook, and we want to even record, right? We can record with our phone our thoughts. So if you cannot write it down, record it on your phone, and you have the audio of what you saw or what the inspiration was.
Absolutely.
So what I hear us saying, Irene, is that we agree with Sophie's number one: always carry a notebook or be prepared to write or record the things that you are seeing in your world that could be an inspiration to your next book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, if I didn't have a pen, at least I have an eyeliner, and I've written quite a lot of things in eyeliner. So, good tip, use your eyeliner. You can always get a new one or sharpen it, ladies. A lot of people are like, oh, I wouldn't have an eyeliner. That cost me, But yes, it works, and it writes, or lipstick. So you have a choice. Even your lip gloss does a real nice job.
So the motto right now is be prepared. So all of you listening, check to see what is in your purse, what is in the console of your vehicle, and are you prepared to write down and keep track of the next thing that you see in your world that can be the beginning of your next book?
Absolutely.
So number 2, think what if and read. So there's 2 parts to Sophie's number 2. So what she says about this is start to see the world in a what if way and keep your possibilities open for a story. And then I think that that's true. I mean, what are we seeing happening around us?
Yeah.
That is an opportunity. Or what if this happened in my life? What if this happened in my heroine's story?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that, Irene? Think about what if when we're looking in the world around us.
Well, it's funny because when I used to take the train into New York a lot for business, I would sit on the train and I was like, well, what if, and I would create a story. Or what if I said hello to that person? Is that person going to be rude? Or what if I ask if I can borrow his pen because I like his pen and I want to know if it's got a nice flow? Or what if she changed her lipstick because it's a little too, those are things that I write about and I think about and differently, I guess, than other people. But I will agree with her on that. What if I don't move forward reaching out to them and saying, is it going to ruin my day? Mm-hmm. So you got to look at what ifs in a positive way because you'll never know what it brings you to,
And also what comes to mind is when we see people talk, we might create a story about their relationship.
Yes.
So what if the 2 people in front of me who are talking, what if they end up having a relationship? What if they have a date? What if, we don't know what it might be, but the point is have imagination. Think about the
Absolutely.
possibilities.
It's like think out of the box, and always look outside of the box with your character, your voice. Um, if you stay, I always say rules were made to be broken, and these are where rules were made to be broken, and it's good. There's good grammar that you want to stay in line with, but with your story, rules were made to be broken in the art world, and I consider writing an art. Um, just like people who draw stick figures, that to me that's art. um, and
I try.
even the thumbprints, I love that because to me that's cute, that's art, that's whimsical, and not many people could come up with things like that.
Right.
So that is art, and writing your words out loud is art to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to agree. I have to really agree
Well,
because
in a previous show, we talked about poetry and haiku, which
yes,
is art with words. I mean, we could hear, we could feel, we could sense what the poets had been writing. So the other part of number 2 is read. So Sophie talks about reading is vital if you are to be a writer.
yes,
Read everything. And again, I don't mean that literally because we can't read everything in the world, but the point is expose ourselves to different types of writing, different authors.
correct.
So
And
I think that just broadens our understanding of how we can write.
I have to agree with you on that. I mean, I read a lot of different genres daily. I read a lot within a month or a day, I should say. And by the end of the day, it's just different styles, and it opens you up to different styles of writing and their visions and different voices. And it's just, even in the newspaper, and on a tablet or reading someone's anthology, someone's, and I am going to go back to our book because that book is um, 365 days, okay, and each day has words on it, and they're very important um, for me, not for everybody, but for me, and the whole purpose of living gratitude daily. You know, when I read that on a daily basis, it gives me inspiration to go out there and find more words, read more words, and look at life totally differently. And I'm tired, lately in the newspaper, it's one thing after the next, nothing is resolved. And, my heart goes out to everybody in Florida with the shooting, the massacre, what had happened. And that needs to be resolved too. But I also want to read something light-minded as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell everybody there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I read all of it on a daily basis.
Right. And, as I said earlier, it just broadens us and it opens us up. And not that we have to agree or like what we're reading, but it's the experience, it's the exposure.
Right. And I always tell everybody to read, I like fashion and even products out there. I love reading about products, new products that are, trending right now. Do they work, over the counter versus top line? So it doesn't matter what you're reading as long as you're reading.
Right. And the other thing that I will throw in, and I will neither confirm nor deny that I did this as a child, is read the dictionary. I mean, what a way to
I still do. I still do. So don't laugh because I call that dictionary up all day long because it's like when did that become, a word?
Right. And you want to expand your vocabulary.
Yes.
Now, and also when I was young, and I'm probably dating myself a little bit, because the encyclopedia salesman would come by, right? And every family had sets of encyclopedias.
Absolutely.
We read and learned. I mean, we didn't have the internet.
No.
And it was fun. I mean, the things that you could read about in the however many volumes, 20 to 30 volumes.
Yeah, I think it was 42 volumes. And because the library's always got the next edition instead of it coming to your household. So I am going to put my age out there, okay? And if you didn't, you would have to go to the library, and you just couldn't. That was like in a certain room. And our library, back in my hometown, Maplewood, you had to have your library card, and you couldn't take that book out. That book had to stay there. So that guarantees you were going to stay in the library for how many hours you needed to. But I have to agree, I loved the encyclopedia.
Yes. So Sophie's number 3 is write the book that you want to read.
Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. I thought that's pretty deep. At least from my perspective and how I was reading that and how I was sort of reading into it, I guess, from my perspective.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if we don't like what we're reading, if we are not in love with what we're reading, I mean, writing, how likely is it that you're going to finish your book?
True. That's true. Well, what book are you in right now? I know you're in like 3 different books. Yeah, I'm in 5. Okay, so we'll take away Living in Gratitude, because I read that daily. And sometimes a couple times, because it's like,
So I just finished, and I'll actually show the book for individuals who may see our video. I finished The 12 Universal Laws of Success.
Nice.
By Dr. Herbert Harris.
Nice.
And Dr. Harris will be on our show, and we will be talking to him about his book. I'm also reading Daring Greatly by Brené Brown.
Nice.
And then I have another one. I started reading the foreword. It's like, oh, I want to finish Brené Brown's book before I go on. But yeah, I mean, there's several books that I'm reading sort of at the same time because of their messages and the inspiration, the motivation.
And I have to agree with you. I'm in the middle of I want to pronounce it correctly, Post-Polish Professionals. And that book isn't out yet. So we just got done laying it out, and I love everything about it. I love all these co-authors that are in there. So that's coming out next week for everybody to read. Limitless is another book that I'm almost done with. And I will be more than happy to share that with you, Denise, because I think that is something that kind of describes both of us on that. There's 2 co-authors on that, and if you give me a second, I'll look up their name, but Altera Lewis is one co-author, beautiful, beautiful individual. And the other is, if you give me 1 second, I don't know if it's going to allow me to open.
Well, as you look for the co-authors of Limitless, so when we know what we like to read and what resonates with us, then we can write the book that we want to read. Because one of the things that Sophie talks about is, when we write a book, not everybody will want to read it, and that is okay. But we should want to read our book. We should be that book at the time that we're writing it. So if you are writing and it's not resonating with you, perhaps that's not the book for you to write today.
Oh,
It could
absolutely.
be the right book for you to write next year. But write the book that you want to read now and that resonates with you and that you're sort of falling in love with what you're writing.
Okay, it's Chris Cran. And his name is Kris and Krahn. So wonderful, wonderful book. And when I'm done with it, I will have everybody, I'll send you a copy of it, Denise.
Oh, great. And then
Yeah.
we can do a review and talk about that book on another show.
Yeah.
That will be great. So Sophie's number 4 is don't talk about what you're writing. So what do you think about that?
Well, for me, on a different perspective, that's kind of hard.
Okay. Right. As a publisher,
yeah.
As an author, as a magazine creator, designer.
Right. So for me, it's, what do you mean by that? Don't talk about what you're writing.
One of the things that Sophie mentioned in regards to her number 4 was that she was very secretive when she's writing a book. And the other thing is Sophie writes, she's a solo author. So my experience in being in books and compiling and being a primary author is I'm with other people talking about the book. We're discussing the book. We're sharing what we're writing. So I think it depends on the specific person. Now, if one is going to share what they're writing, then you also have to hopefully be open to anyone in the whole wide world, whether they understand writing, whether they ever read a book, that they will have an idea about what you're writing and whether it's good or not. And so you have to be able to, as the author, to let go and not necessarily, unless it's your publisher, right? So your publisher and your editor are going to give you constructive, supportive feedback.
Correct.
Anyone else in the world, until your book is published, might not really know what they're talking about.
Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. It's like I hear so many people, it's like, oh, I'm writing this book. Okay, well, tell me what your book's about.
Yeah.
And, everybody is, will tell you what their book's about. Other people won't, because they're still stuck on the first chapter. They're still stuck on their message. And it's not like, again, here we go, okay, with something that, you and I discussed earlier and over an episode where now do you bring out that letter of confidentiality? And everything's eclectic, even, in writing. The difference is it's your style that makes you different.
Right.
It's the way that you write. And a lot of authors today, not everybody is Shakespeare, but could we look at someone today and say, oh, that's so poetic and so moving that they write like Shakespeare? Yes, I can. Not everybody is going to be Miss Rowling. Okay?
Right.
Though I can take her books, each one of her books, and compare it to Lord of the Rings. I can compare it to, I guess, today's a few other books, but her books are magical. Her books bring you to a whole new world of, I want to live in Harry Potter's world. I really do, I just want to live in there, and I have no problem with that. So, her books opened up a new language, a new world, just like I'm trying to think of it, and I do love it, and I watch it religiously, and I'm just waiting for the last season, Game of Thrones. So,
So, do I admit I've never seen the Game of Thrones? I think I just admitted I never.
oh my gosh! Okay,
I don't even really understand what it is, and so yeah, I'm one of those people.
well, do you like Robin
I've
Hood?
never seen a whole movie or a whole of Harry Potter either.
Oh, see, look, I watched The Dark Crystal, and I think that's just because, um, coming from a different environment and upbringing, would you come and go with me to not a rock and roll concert, but
I can do rock and roll. I'm sure I can.
no, I know you can, but I was just going to say, would you come with me to the opera?
Oh yes, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've seen the opera, and
And
I'm sure I've gone to one concert in my lifetime.
just one? Oh my God,
Well,
we have to get you on.
was not a concert. Okay, I was a little bit of a nerd growing up, or I have been almost my whole life. So, but I've traveled a lot. So I'm going to say, you know what? I have traveled to several countries that people haven't gone to.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to use that as I can get out of my shell and I can experience life. There's just things that normal people do, like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, concerts, probably other things that normal people do that I didn't. But I used to read a lot as a child, and actually, this is so funny. So I started reading at a young age, and I love to read. And one day, and I was young, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, and I went to the library and I checked out a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, but the librarian said, well, I can't let you check that out. And I'm like, well, why not? And she's like, well, that's an adult book. Now, she didn't mean adult as in porn.
Right.
It was made for, the ages were 18 and above or whatever, but it wasn't for a 7-year-old. But I said, well, I've already read all the kiddie books and I can read this. So you call my mom and she will tell you that I can check out this book.
And, oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, because I already read all those other books, and like I said, I can't even remember. It could have been Gone with the Wind. It was something that normally a 6 or 7-year-old doesn't read, right? Right. But it's like, I'm done with all those other books. So now I'm into this next section. And so, yeah, it was funny. So,
I love it. Oh, my God, I love that. I love that. I love that.
So in talking about different types of books, that leads us into number 5, which is forget about genre to find your voice. And I like that one.
So do I.
So when we're starting to write, when we're starting to share our voice, develop our message, I don't think we have to think about, well, what genre does this fit into? And especially in today's world, you and I talked about this in one of our other shows. We just sort of mentioned the fact that there are more genres now than when you look at the historic, I think there was 4 or 5. Yeah. And now we have more, because historically there wasn't a science fiction genre.
No.
Because there wasn't science fiction when books started to be published and reading became more popular.
Oh, absolutely.
So definitely we do not need to be stovepiped or think you have to write in one specific genre.
Yeah. So many books today now create their own language, and, they've made that into movies. So I have to agree. I have to totally agree with her, and some people make their own. I do know one thing, though. I don't want to read another vampire.
I think
I am so
isn't that a genre of its own? Your vampire stories?
Yeah, because it is. It's their own little genre. My thing is something different. That's all. You know, and kids books today are all under a different genre.
Right.
Totally different genre out
Right.
there.
Well, and you and I have talked about one of our shows, we will talk about the genres of today that people can write in, and that it is different from the historical or stereotypical genres. And that's happens in almost every aspect of our world, that as technology increases, as we create, as we use imagination, that there's other categories also in other parts of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So number 6, just get to the end. Get to the end of your book. What do you think about that one, Irene?
Well, don't laugh. If sometimes some of our authors have their ending already before their middle. So, and here's the reality. How long do you want to sit on a book? And that's something that, writer's block, I can throw out there. Get to the end of your book. So from beginning to end. I don't know. Some people write a book, it takes them over a year. Some people can write a book in a weekend. Some people need a couple months to get that book out.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, do you want to get to the end, or are you going to sit on it for 10 years like some people I know who've sat on a book for 10 years and haven't finished it?
Right. So I think it depends on, why are you not finishing it? Now, someone who is waiting for 10 years, there could have been something significant that happened in their life, and their whole vision of the book has significantly changed, and maybe they couldn't finish it.
Correct.
Now, if it is because somebody is afraid, somebody is uncomfortable, somebody, that there's this mental block or story, no pun intended, but this story that they created in their mind that the book isn't good enough and nobody will buy it, that is not a reason to not write your book.
Correct.
So, and I think that those are the things that we as writers, as authors, need to be aware of. What are we creating for ourselves? What have we put in the way of us finishing the book?
Yeah, and I think what everybody wants that cliffhanger at the end. My life, or, a mystery, and, so they have a sequel. And it's very hard with an ending, even with somebody's short story, 1,200 words, 1,800 words in a magazine, or 650 words in a magazine. And, that ending. And it's very, very hard. But at the same time, if you're writing about certain genres, you also have to have a little research on that certain genre.
Right.
And whatever you do, don't quote the Bible, because I've had some people who've quoted the Bible more than 50 times, and you can't do that. To me, that's not a story. That book's been written,
Right.
And it's very hard for some people to write an ending because they can't see that vision.
And there's multiple times that a person writes an ending, but at a certain point, we need some sort of ending, and then it's going back and seeing how that ending works with what you've written.
Correct. Does it work? Or is there more to the story? And it's usually, okay, that's coming up for another book. So how do you end it?
Right.
End it on a cliffhanger and get that other book out.
Yes. So number 7, I highly, highly recommend walk and drink cocktails.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will agree with that. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you why.
So if we get stuck, you go for a walk, you clear your head, you have a cocktail.
Absolutely. And then you come back, and on your way back, voila, it's like, make sure you have your paper and pen, because even if you take a nap, you wake up because you're dreaming about it.
Right.
But yes, walk and have cocktails.
Yes.
And talk out loud.
I'm not sure why that wasn't number one.
Yeah.
Or, 1, 5, 7, 10. But yes, because, you need to clear your head.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to relax a little bit. Irene and I are not advocating that people go out and get drunk to be better authors. Some people, like I said, maybe you take a nap. Maybe you do something around your house. But if you're stuck in your writing, then, take a step back and free up.
Take a bubble bath.
Yes. Yes. Take a bubble bath with your glass of wine.
Yes.
Number 8, plan your books.
Now, I will say I do agree with that. Okay. But sometimes another idea will come in and take precedence of everything else, because it's so hot in your mind. I know a lot of people who, Amazon says you need 10 books on there as for you to get money, and that's not the case, people. You need to write a good book. And be seen, read, and heard, and promote. But, I have a list of books. Denise, do you have a list of books? I know you do. And
do I have a list of ideas for books? Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And the planning doesn't have to be this organized planning. I mean, there's different levels of planning. Even having your ideas that you would like to do in the next 2 years.
Right.
And maybe there's one of those ideas that you do have plotted out a little bit more than others. So there's different levels of the planning of each book that you're going to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So number 9, and this can be a little bit controversial in our world today, since there's self-publishing, there's small publishing houses, there's the, large publishing houses. But number 9 is get a great agent and consider a pseudonym. So what do you think about that?
Well, I have a lot of people who will go with an agent, and it's very hard to get an agent. Okay, so agents usually work with big names. I'm not going to tell you anything that's not true. They want to work with a big name. They want to make sure you have a big following, and sometimes an agent will reach out to you. Self-publishing, but with that agent, they might give you an advance up front where you're not putting out that money for your book, versus in self-publishing and some of these independent publishing houses. These independent publishing houses, you're paying them, and your books are print on demand. So what that basically means is you're not covering that cost.
Well, so, and I think, it costs money to have an agent.
Yeah.
Whether that is money you pay them up front, whether they give you money up front, but they still will take a lot of your profits. Now, depending on the agreement that you have, maybe they're able to help you to market and to sell more books, but it's at a cost.
At a bigger cost.
And, you know, for Sophie, I mean, she can afford an agent, especially now with her Shopaholic series, but not everybody can. So I think that there are many more options and opportunities for someone to create, write a book, and to become published than there was traditionally.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, indie books, which is a big part of Amazon, um, Kindle books, they make that opportunity open for everybody. You know, Amazon is bigger than Barnes and Noble today. So Amazon is the empire of books to be seen, heard, and read.
Right.
So and you're still on Amazon, guys. You're in Amazon, and in Barnes and Noble, because Amazon does supply to Barnes and Noble online stores.
Right. And I think, you know, one of the statistics that I have heard is less than 1% of people in the world have published a book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you become an author and you are in authors groups and you're connecting with authors, it seems like everybody is writing a book, but it's only because you are now more aware of it.
Correct.
And so I think that nothing is saturated in regards to creating and publishing a book. We want it to be as good as possible.
Yeah.
We don't just want to because we can create and publish anything. That's not necessarily what we want to do.
Right. But I do find that it's, it does help with status today. Okay. Because a lot of people, especially with coaches and speakers, and, the new thing is, well, have you published a book? And it is a great success for them if they have. But it is a status symbol as well to have on your portfolio that you are a published author.
Right. And there are many opportunities for support that is out there. I mean,
absolutely.
You yourself, I mean, you are the creator and owner of ICK Publishing, supporting authors to create their books. And you offer several different packages or services to support the authors.
Yeah.
And to help someone who doesn't have an agent, to help individuals who they don't have an editor, right? You have a full service publishing company that can provide all of that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, for us, that book we take in is handled with, like it's a baby, it's a newborn.
Right.
And sometimes you'll get authors that are antsy, they think they know better, and it's like, I don't think so. And I don't mean it in that way. It's just, it's not ready yet,
Right.
It's not ready.
It needs some more work. It needs some more love. It needs some more attention. Read what you've written.
Yeah.
And sometimes when authors haven't really written before as in a book that others are going to read, it's not the same as writing something technical. It's not necessarily the same as writing a speech. Correct. It's not the same as writing a blog. And sometimes people need to be open to that constructive feedback in regards to how they're writing and how they're sharing their ideas and what's the emotion behind it, which will be a whole nother episode of our show, The Author's Message,
yes.
Here on Global Voice Radio, because we want to help authors to write in a way, write the book you want to read, and also can share it with others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So number 10 on our list, Sophie talks about write the next you. And what Sophie means by that is that we write ourselves in our books, right? We're writing from inside of us. We're writing who we are today. And I've looked at my own writing and what I wrote 4 years ago and how I wrote and the perspective is not the same that I'm writing today because I'm not the same. So I'm writing a new
New
and
you.
all of you can write with the new you.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Absolutely. You know, I have, and I'll give you an example. I have a book that I don't talk about. But I do. I've spoken to small circles about, and it's just not there yet. And reading it and going back and reading certain chapters, I've made adjustments because I have a different voice today. And that's, you know, another thing. With more and more writers, your voice is totally different. So you see the weakness in the beginning and the middle and the end. And that's a big issue when I see a writer who holds on to a book for 3 to 4 years. And even published pieces, you'll look at it and it's like, wow, I've come a long way. And your writing and your ability and your voice is stronger. So I do suggest that people do write on a daily basis, even if it's a sentence, because you become a stronger writer in your own voice on a daily basis. So what are you going to write for us next, Denise?
I'm not totally sure exactly what I'm going to do next. Of course, there will be...
Oh, so we're not going to talk about it. Don't talk about it. No.
There will be several things. And actually, the chapter to go into the book that you mentioned, because we do have a new voice.
Yeah.
And we need to share our voice. And that really is what Irene and I are providing in regards to the author's message, is that we talk about what is your message? What is your voice? How can you be seen, heard, and read, and that you are sharing with others? Because that's how we learn. You know, that's how the world changes, is because people share their messages.
Absolutely. And we do share our message. Some people don't look at it as, you know, you do a social media post, you're sharing a message.
Right.
You know, I go back, you know, I've had a journal as long as I can remember, you know, and I keep that journal and I write it on a daily basis, either, you know, late in the middle of the night, or it's your voice coming through. And your voice is a very, very powerful tool, and words are very powerful, you know, and I'm a leader when it comes to words. I'm just not the wordsmith like Joy is.
So you are an excellent writer and getting your message and your voice out. And sometimes I'm a little bit more reticent in the beginning of writing, but yes, I love to read what people have written and then make suggestions on changes. That seems to be easier. And I think a lot of people can agree with what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
As we practice, as you said, Irene, as we write in our journal, if you are journaling every day, that is going to help you to be a better author. And especially if you are truly being authentic in your journaling, in your writing, and being open and honest with yourself, that only adds to you being that author who can address those difficult topics, who can be authentic, who can be vulnerable, who can be honest in the stories that they're sharing and in what you're writing.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. That's why I know. That's why I call her the wordsmith.
So I hope all of you have enjoyed our show. I have enjoyed, Irene, you and I talking about Sophie's tips. We agreed with her on most of the things.
Yeah.
But I think for the beginning authors and, authors in our tribe, that there are some things that are going to be a little bit different than somebody who has had several New York Times bestsellers. We all can get there, and it's okay if we don't. We can still share our message. We can be published. We can be seen, read, and heard just as well as anyone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. Absolutely. It's time to make your voices heard.
Yes. So if anyone has questions or comments for Irene and I, if you want to connect with us, go to our Facebook group, Global Voice Radio. That's where you can find us. That's where you can listen to our shows. And we would love your feedback. And we'll see you again on The Author's Message.
Bye. Thanks, Denise. A great show. Loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. You are listening to The Author's Message with Denise Joy and Irene Pro for lively discussions and guest interviews on authors, publishers, readers, and of course our listeners. Join us every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern on Global Voice Radio.